I just want to welcome everybody because we have 6 authors. We've never had this before. And so we're going to work with time. And there's the lovely Alice Akineza. She supports me here. My name is Olunosen Louisa Ivaze. I am the founder of the club. I started the club as a way to have authentic conversations and shape the Black narrative, because I feel that we are the only ones who have the power to do this one book at a time.
Oh no, I just wanted to take the time to thank the authors who have joined us today. You have no idea how important this type of conversation are for us. And having 6 of you present today, it's not only a blessing, but it's more an honor. We a little bit late. Sorry for for that. You know, we're trying to work on the CPA time. And I just wanted to shout out to my French speakers. Merci beaucoup donc de nous avoir rejoints. C'est un plaisir de vous recevoir. J'ai vu qu'il y avait quelqu'un de la Côte d'Ivoire. Ah, ça me manque d'aller manger la loco. Et puis d'être au Grand Bassam. Et puis, thank you very much. There is no words that can describe how honored we are to have you all here.
So welcome everybody. I am not going to do the introductions, but we have 5 of the authors here. Yejide Kilanko will be joining us in a bit. So 10 minutes, they will all introduce themselves and talk about their stories. So I'll start with Nana. Nana, thank you so much. You are amazing this past few days, going back and forth. Once again, everybody, I'm Louisa Ivaze. Relations. So with this anthology, what got me here was, you said, my goal was to create a meeting place for those of us connected by shared color or continent, but often separated by country, language, history, experience, or outlook. What came to me when I started reading this book was the definition of what does it mean to be African and the definition of identity. So kindly go ahead, tell me about yourself. What inspired you to start to work on this collection, your inspiration for this, and definition of the African identity?
Okay, first of all, I just want to say my name is Nanekwa Abdul-Hammond. I am so excited to be here. I want to thank everybody who has joined. I want to thank you, Louisa, because you have been amazing. Thank you for promoting this and giving us this incredible platform to share relations. Your question, I'm going to take that in a second, but I also want to thank the incredible contributors who are on this platform and who are part of this journey of relations. I feel so grateful and so blessed to be in community with you. I think your work is fantastic. And I really was just looking to read good work during the pandemic, and I had this incredible opportunity to put this together. So it's such a gift. With that said, basically, so I want to just quickly couch it and say that Edwige and I think it was 2014, we were selected as part of the Africa 39, which was a project via the Hay Festival when Port Harcourt in Nigeria was selected to be the world book capital. And Edwige, myself, and 37 other writers who were under 39 then were invited to Port Harcourt, and we met. And one of the things that struck me about that experience that I had never really thought about was that I had no idea what was going on in quote unquote Francophone literature, Lusophone literature, all of the different parts of the continent that people are living and breathing and living lives and recording their lives. I had no idea what was going on there. All I really knew about was Ghana and Nigeria by extension, and other sort of English speaking countries. And so I was really I was so blown away by that, and I was so intrigued by that. And so when I got the opportunity to put this together, one of the things that was on my mind was I really wanted to recreate that experience and try in some way to push it a little bit further, to bring together writers from across the continent, and also bring together different types of work, different types of stories, etc. And to answer your question, to show that the African identity is not a monolith. We are all, we're human beings on this planet. And, of course, where you live or your cultural context shapes a lot of that. But at the end of the day, we're all just trying to make sense of our lives. And so to me, there is no one African identity. It just happens that we had the, I would say, fortune to have been either born on the continent or be connected to the continent by parentage, by experience, what have you. And because of that, we share a certain kind of experience that I just wanted to sort of bring us together to be able to kind of have that experience in community on the page. One thing I'll quickly add is that I mentioned that this project was happening during the pandemic.
Okay.
So I pitched this in August 2020, which I've heard someone say that was peak pandemic. Mm-hmm. And, I was alone in my apartment, which I'm in right now. And I just felt, like I was trapped in my apartment, and I really missed the fellowship of being with writers. So Ray is on here. I met Ray at the Peja Literary Festival in Accra. Boachiwa, I don't even remember where I met Boachiwa. Like, I feel like I've just known you. Boachiwa is a Ghanaian writer, and I've known her for some years, and I'd also see her at Peja and other literary festivals on the continent. And I just wanted to sort of, in the loneliness of being at home in my apartment stuck during the pandemic, I wanted to sort of recreate that connection. And it was beautiful because getting all of this work, I felt like they were all in my living room with me as I was reading. So that's my story.
Okay, thank you so much. Because reading it, I liked that it just brought to light the vastness of the African identity. So yeah, so this did for me. Your intro did that for me. It opened my eyes to a lot of, I'm like, okay, makes a lot of sense. So I'm gonna go on to the next. I'm gonna go on to Bochiwa. Yeah, because I said I wasn't gonna say that name wrong. God's Plan. I think this was one of the stories that really, really resonated with me because it was, I read it, I took it personal. And it just dawned on me that we take a lot of, as women, especially women in our 40s, we take a lot of African women or Black women, we take a lot of things for granted. Yeah. And, when I was reading it and I was going, okay, the lack of knowledge about women's health. You go to school, you are taught different things. You are taught the digestive system, the reproductive system, but nobody tells us that how important it is to have a gynecologist. I'm reading about this woman in your 40s. You are still going to your pediatrician. Look, please, Bochiwa, go ahead. Introduce yourself. Tell us about your inspiration for your story, God's Plan.
Thank you very much. So the name is what Nanekia said before, Boachiwa. The KYE is pronounced like a CH, so it's Boachiwa. So with God's Plan, the origin of it, to be quite honest, I wanted to fictionalize it just to save myself from appearing like I didn't know all of this. So the original draft was fiction. It was a couple, but after conversations with a very capable and talented and great Nanekria, we decided to be very honest with this and make it a personal essay. And once it became a personal essay, I decided to kind of let go and tell things as it is. And I remember having a conversation with Nanekria once about, so you really didn't know? I'm like, I really didn't know. And it wasn't just me, like all of a sudden when I was going through this fertility journey, friends I have who are my age were sharing their stories with me and we didn't know either. So I decided to put it all out there, even if it may surprise someone that a woman in her 40s had this lack of knowledge about fertility. I figured, let me just be honest, because this might help someone. And even if it helps just one person who's like in her 30s, it hasn't yet hit that point, it's best for me to make it honest. So I mean, this is real. This is the way it was exactly. And so I just sort of laid it all bare and put it all out there.
Okay. And this thing about the definition of womanhood, because I'm reading about this woman, I mean, she's successful. You know, she has self-published, she's made money, she's done all of that. But it's still this thing about family, and then the order in which it goes. You know, the husband, pregnancy, children, in that order. And also, I like that. I found it interesting, you know, the role religion played in it.
Yes.
Where she needed, she felt, even though she was out there socially, she was independent, but she still felt the need. She needed the validation of her pastor to go ahead.
Just to explain that or touch on that a little bit. Yeah. So Ghana is a very, very religious society, and we're a couple of things. We're very cultural, we're very family oriented, and we're very religious. So if you read God's plan, those themes sort of come out. I felt it necessary to consult with my pastor, but also felt it necessary to consult with my family, and also felt it like, what would people think? And I felt it necessary because I was doing this on my own. I feel like if I had a husband or I had a partner, you sort of make those decisions together, and I may not necessarily have gone to my pastor. I also felt it necessary because I was at the point where IVF seemed to be the only path forward. And Christian communities have a reaction to IVF because of the embryos being produced, and the concept of life begins at conception. So if you're going to create embryos and you don't use the embryos, there's an implication from a Christian perspective that you have terminated a life if you produce like 5 embryos and you only use 1. So because of that reaction, and because I was going to do this on my own, I just wanted to consult my pastor, consult my family. And as you will gain from the story, that didn't really go well. The family community was like, you need to follow the path, and you need to have faith and trust that God will bring the man first. And no matter how old you are, God will also bring the child eventually. And one of the people at church, the pastor's relative, actually also had the same thing, that no, you're going against God's plan. And you shouldn't feel a rush. It means you're jumping ahead. Trust God that the man will come, and then the child will come naturally. So yes, it's like very cultural and religious environment. And even as an independent, strong woman, it was really hard to say I disregard all of that.
Okay, thank you so much. You know, because of the ethical reasons, now that I've read this story, you know, I just thought about it. I said, you know what? Next time I go see my doctors, I'm going to ask specific questions. And then I just have this assumption that every woman, the women in my family are very fertile. So anytime I decide to have children, bam, it's just going to happen. But the story just showed me how we take a lot of things for granted. I'm just looking at the comment section here. Irene, no, we are not reading parts of the book because it will take time. I just saw your question here. Let me see. Why is it okay? Okay, so I'm going to go to the next. I'm going to go to the next story, which is Poor Men Have Too Much Ego by Edwidge. So I read this and I just shook my head and I went, this is it's a very, very African thing. Let me see, where is Edwidge? Okay, I see you here, yeah. So, I mean, for people who have been in this, for regulars in this book club, all of you, everybody, they all know my thoughts about broke men. So, and now that you have this broke man cheating on this lady in his brokenness when he has nothing. And, you know, I think that many times women, we know what to do, but the fear of the unknown and why we need validation from people to do what we already know we should do is what I need to understand. So please speak to us about this, your story.
Thank you so much. I see Nana laughing very hard. And I think I do share the same thoughts with you about broke men. No broke man shall come into this territory, because I think we need to be like completely blunt. We live in a very patriarchal age in a very patriarchal society. If you want women to do something, certain things, oh yeah, you must submit, then you must do this, and you must do the other. Well, let me have the right also to say, don't be broke, my friend. Do not be broke. This is so until we abolish patriarchy, this is where the situation is. But I think, as with many of my stories, sometimes it comes because, you know, maybe I've gotten angry or something, and this actually was born out of that. There is this resurgence of Christianity in Cote d'Ivoire since the last 10 years, actually, and the really wrong kind of Christianity, you know. It is as if this God is putting you into this box that you must not step out of. And especially as a woman, you should, like you said earlier on, you know, it is as if they want you to be to just follow one path, which is get married at all costs possible, by all means possible. Just get married, and it is as if you do not have any right to aspire to good careers, to aspire to make good money in your work, to aspire for, you know, to travel. And I think in this story, I just wanted to speak about our rapport to religion, especially Christianity and, you know, animism. How, at least in Cote d'Ivoire anyway, when, you know, things get tough, people start discovering or finding out the ways to their village, but nobody talks about that. And it is as if you should no longer mention your dead ancestors, and you should not give them gene because you are supposedly a good Christian, and it is only by the blood of Jesus that things can get resolved in your life. It was annoyance about, yes, that guilt that they put on, you know, that they put on women. And the fact that, well, yeah, you should, I think, like with anything in life, you should want to want what you want, you know. It is not by force that you should get with this person because, oh, well, you know, it's bringing nothing into the home. I was chatting to a friend just before I wrote this story, actually, and he was like, well, you know, in my culture, the women don't care if you bring in any money. They want you to, you know, to till the land, and then you just need to give them good sex and babies, and that's it. And I was like, okay, so when, because I also hate that with some of our African men, that suddenly there are these, you know, great modernists, and then when things get tough on them, they find out what their culture says. So I asked him, so in a context of the modern world today, what will be tilling land? You know, what will you do? Like to till this land for a woman? It might mean give her, like, you know, a big shop and fill it with stuff, and then she gets, you know, the profit and she manages it. It might mean, like, you know, different things. So you cannot just bring to the equation today you know, just good sex and many children. And there is actually a wrong thinking behind that, as if the women of, like, you know, the 5th century in Africa, or the 6th century in Africa, were sitting down waiting for a man to look after them. We have a wrong thinking about our ancestresses and women who came before us, and we should just get rid of those you know, those colonial thinking, because no African woman was ever sitting down, you know, waiting for somebody to look after her. Never, ever, ever.
Yes, very, very true. Because, you know, I was reading it, and, you know, when you brought in religion, and I love the part that you see that her auntie, Georgette,
Yeah.
Tante Georgette, you know, she reminds me a lot about myself, very direct, very blunt. And, you know, when she was talking to her and said, how do you handle these things? And she goes, do you see any man here? I had a good laugh when I read that. But I like that you went ahead in the story to say, even the man after God's heart was rich.
Yes, exactly. You know,
even the man after God's heart was rich. And it's interesting how in our society today, the society itself and men expect us to forgive everything that they do. Trust me, I don't think in the African context or in the general context, men will forgive 1% of what they do to us if we did it to them. I don't think they will forgive it. He messes up, oh, you forgive him, you know, he's just a man. But you come to realize that men have brains, they are not children. And I think that what you continue to tolerate, a person will continue to do to you. Because if we had a culture where we were given that option, just walk away when the BS is too, when it gets too much, just walk away. I feel there'll be some sort of check and balance. And then when you realize that men treat different women differently. Yeah, because you see a man who is with a woman, disrespects her, cheats on her and all of that. Trust me, you see that same man with someone else and he's shaking. Then you start to ask yourself question, okay, what is going on? The pastor's wife here, a woman builds her home. A lot of African women, I feel, are going through, they experience this trauma, and after some time, they suppress it. Look at our mothers and the things that they tolerated from our fathers. I feel that our mothers are not with our fathers today necessarily because they love them. I feel a lot of them are with them out as a sense of duty because of this kind of society they come from, and also because many of them, it never crossed their mind that there was any other option. It's just that assumption that men will be men. But I don't believe men will be men. I don't think so. Yeah. So this one, that he is doing all of these things to her, and the women there are still expecting her. You understand? Because she went as far as confronting the other woman. Why do we fight each other? And
No,
that
I'm
not sleeping with him anymore.
No, I like the response that the mistress gave. And I think, sometimes we, seeking validation or wanting to, I think, we should get to a place where we know that I was chatting to my mom recently and saying, I think, a lie has been told to the majority, to many women, in the sense that, oh my God, if you do not get married, then your biological clock, or if you do not do this, then, nobody will have you. If you have a bigger car, then no man will come and chat you up. But why should you dim your light as a woman for a man to feel that he can approach that light? If you cannot approach it, do not approach it. And we need to be quite confident enough and see also examples. I think it's very important to see examples, to see other people who have gone beyond us and and done wonderful things. I don't know if Nana said, but I do have a library actually in Abidjan focusing on that, on women's contributions, African and Black women contributions to the world and to Africa and everything. It is important for us to see those examples so that we are not thinking that there is only one example, and so that we tell these people, well, if you do not like it, then go. Because yes, even if a biological clock is happening where you can have a child by yourself, it is also very possible to have a child by yourself, to pursue a career, and having to dim your light so that somebody will find you worthy. That is no business. You cannot put the motor of a Range Rover in a Ford Focus and expect anything good happening there. Not possible.
Yeah, I think that I personally think that marriage is a good thing if it is done for the right reason. But I think a lot of people don't understand the meaning of marriage. And by saying that, I mean some women just assume when you are married, you are settled. Oh, it's a new status. Then some men feel that when you are married, oh, you've married an automatic house help. It shouldn't be like that. I wish people could ask more questions like, do you love him? Are you happy? Not in terms of romantic, in the sense of romantic love, but in sense of, are you willing to make sacrifices for each other? Are you willing to love each other? Are you willing to forgive each other? Yeah, those kind of questions. Yeah. So I'm going to go on to the next. Story. I'm so happy we're keeping to time. Yeah. I'm going to go on to the next story by Reem Gafar, which is Finding Descartes. So when I started reading your story, initially I was wondering, okay, by Ustaz Awad. So what I could gather from the story was, I was thinking of, the philosophy and questioning the religion, thoughts of God. And then also, it brought me back to the women, that woman saying her son works for the UN and taking her to Nairobi for medicals. Oh, my son works for the UN, he can't just marry just anybody. She has to choose a wife for him. Then I thought of his relationship with his father, and masculinity, question that. And then that boy he kept looking for. So please go ahead, introduce yourself and tell us about your story.
Thank you for that, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Reem Jaffer. I'm from Sudan. And really, the story of Ustaz Awad, who is an elementary school math teacher. I'm sorry for the background noise. So it's really about overcoming overcoming difficulty and making the difficult situations to which basically change the course of history in the end. So it's about all these ordinary people who eventually become part of an extraordinary movement. And this story is set in the part of in the December revolution, the Sudanese revolution, which started in 2018. And this is the color that I'm wearing, which resembles the Sudanese revolution. And I also want to ask people to take a minute from your day later on just to check on what's going on in Sudan these days with all the fighting and the chaos. So it's really about ordinary people overcoming their own individual, battles, and then making these difficult choices and becoming part of something which is really, really big. And I think usually when we look at these extraordinary movements, we always see, the big events, we hear about the heroes, and we don't really recognize that there is a critical mass of very ordinary, very scared people behind these movements, without which, if they weren't present, these things wouldn't have happened. And that these people all have their own fear, they have a lot to lose, they have their own, context which they're coming from. Like, for example, Ustaz Awad is someone who is in his late 50s. He's already witnessed all these movements. He witnessed the liberation from the British Empire, independence, and all these military coups, which I think as Africans, we all have very similar histories or a very similar course. And the legacy of colonialism is just, it manifests a bit differently, but we all have a lot in common. The fractured countries that we have now because of what happened before, and the difficulty that we have trying to, patch everything together with the whole globalization issue. So, and this person is basically very sort of broken. He has this personal background, he has a country background, and then he's faced with this decision where he needs to decide to join this movement to overthrow the injustice and the government, basically, or to just sit back and keep doing whatever it is he's doing, which is nothing. And just making that decision is something that people have been had to make, and because of those difficult decisions, which are very personal, we effectively had this huge movement which changed the course of history of the country. And it just kind of shows that we are much stronger than we think. It's not about, this whole idea of the broken, the lazy African, the people who don't really want to do anything and who have to flee their countries to be better outside of them. It's actually that whole narrative is something that needs to change, and it's already changing, but we just need to acknowledge that we are much stronger than we think we are. So that's the main idea.
Thank you so much. I don't know if Yejide Kilanko is here. I'm going to go straight to Ray. Ray, you are a translator, and I was reading the two stories you translated. I have a question, and I had noted there, I said lost in translation. You know how people say that when you speak more than one language, you get to experience life from two different lenses. So how important do you think it is? How important do you think the power of translation is? And why I'm asking that is, like if a story is written in French and then you get to translate it, how do you maintain the authenticity of the message of that story without watering it down? Because sometimes, people will say like, okay, so I was trying to get a book translated from English to French, and they'll tell you that the meaning in French is slightly different. So I always feel translators are powerful people. So how do you ensure this? So tell us about you and talk to us about the power of translation. Can you hear us?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And first of all, let me just say how happy I am because I'm seeing a lot of women right here. And not just a lot of women, I'm the only man around. And yeah, and this is really good because I'm really fighting for women to be more recognized in literature and to have their writings come up more than they used to be in the past years or decades. And that I'm really happy to see there are women working so hard for it to be great. Yes, I'm Rain Debbie from Cameroon. I'm based in Yaoundé, and I'm literary translator. I'm a writer, and then I'm coaching a lot of women, mostly women, and a lot of authors and literary analysts, so that we can have what I'm calling quality books. So Edwidge knows that very well because we've worked together, and then she's a beautiful woman. I love her every time she's around. It's okay. And thank you also, Nana, for this opportunity because we work together. And now talking about the authenticity of what is written, it is first of all, there's one thing I'm teaching or I'm sharing in my master classes is how the author is looking at things. That's very important because when you read somebody's story, the first thing that you have it is you. How do you feel about what is written? And if you stick to that, you will start translating from your own perspective. But you don't have to consider that the first thing it is to look at things with the author's eyes. So once you reach that stage, I mean, okay, the rest is okay. But now the challenge is, who are you translating for? Do you have a target? Uh, Working with these stories, for instance, that short story and that poem, Nana didn't give any instruction about translate for Japanese or for Americans. Just translate. First of all, what is the whole translation of this? And starting with that, I translated exactly what the authors were writing, but making sure it is literature because the first step was to see if what is written can be translated. Not that it doesn't can be translated here means it is well written. Yeah, it is well written. It is well penned, and because if you take a poorly written story to translate, then you will translate it poorly. Now it has to be edited. We agree with the authors that okay, it is okay. This is how the story.
Okay, let's give him some time. It seems he's frozen.
I just want to quickly say while we're waiting for him to freeze, this was probably one of the most exciting aspects of working on relations was working with Ray and the other translators because it required so much trust.
It's not just a message.
He's on.
Okay.
Okay. May I go on?
Okay. Yeah, we're here.
Okay. Okay. It's not just about the message. It's also about how the story is written. What is the author style? What is the author style? And yes, you have to respect all those things to make sure that you are translating exactly what you are receiving, not from word to word, but really the literature that you're receiving, you're giving it back. You're not just giving back a message. You're giving back that literature. Yes, you have to look with the author's eyes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. But when you talk about looking with the author's eyes, is there a technique for doing this? Because I'll use a word like when you talk about love. In my language, I know that in different languages, people can say I love you in different languages. In my own language, there might be a word for that, but I don't even know how to say it. So even if I was going to translate I love you in my language, it might end up being, it might translate as I care about you, not I love you.
So yes. Yes, it is also about the context. You see, where is that thing said? When they say I love you, for instance, where is it said? Why is it said? Then you have to look at the global context, not just the word I love you, but what is the person exactly saying? Is the person meaning I care for you? Is the person meaning I enjoy your presence? But what is the person really meaning when it is said I love you in one particular language, and then you have to give it back? Because in French, for instance, when we say je t'aime, Je t'aime, it is, yes, it's just that I love you. But we say it so often that at times we lose the real value of it. So now we have to go back to the context and see exactly, okay, in this context, what is the person exactly saying? And so then we're reading around what are the words saying? Is are they sharing an affair together? Are they dating? Are they brothers? Are they this? But what is the kind of love that is shared for you to find the right words and then give it back? You have to consider the context. Yes, true. You have to consider the context.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So Yechiel has joined us. I just mentioned your name. You know, in Nigeria, we say when you mention a person's name and the person shows up, it means the person will live long. So thank you so much for joining us. I call her my sis. So I'm just gonna jump straight to your story. Just a minute. This tangible thing. What I liked about the story was the intergenerational relationship. A lot of us were not privileged to have that kind of relationship with our grandparents. And I really like that. I mean, with my grandmom was very strict. And as a stubborn child, there's no way that relationship could have been sweet like that. And here you said something about when you spoke about love. You said did you fall in love? You said in those days there was no falling. I think just meeting and choosing. And also you touched on the importance of names, where Ajoke, where she complained that Ajoke is referred to as a joke. So please tell us about you and tell us about your story.
Okay. Well, good. Let me say, still good morning. So this is good morning. I'm in Chatham, Ontario. Thank you so much for having me. And Louisa, I have to say that what I heard before was that if they say your name and you show up, that you're your father's child. So it's a DNA test. So it's also you will live long, and then you're also your father's child. So I think I like both. So yeah, going back to the story, it was really I really enjoyed writing the story. That in terms of, see, now I've forgotten the question.
No, just tell us about about itself. Yeah,
okay, so the story itself. So what sparked it? And the power of names. Okay. So what sparked the story was, right now I'm not doing direct practice, but I'm a social worker, and for about 10 years I was a therapist. I did counseling with children. So from 0 to 18, when they aged out at 18. And so there was a particular child that I had who had selective mutism.
Okay.
And so that was, and it's a form of anxiety. Some children who present like with extreme anxiety also present with selective mutism, where they only speak in certain circles. Some will only speak at home. Some, would only speak to one person. And so I've always been, it's a very challenging condition to help children process. And so that was what led me to write that story, because writing for me has always been the way I process things. If I have a question about something, if I want to know more about something, if I'm struggling with something. So that's the way, my lens through which I process things. And so that's what led to me writing the story. And I set the story in Nigeria. And so I live here in Canada. And because for my children were born, I have 3 children. My oldest today's actually her birthday. She turned 22 today. And so my first 2 were born in the States, because I lived in the States for a while before moving to Canada. And they didn't really have a close relationship with their they didn't have a close relationship with their grandparents, because my parents are both late now, and my husband's parents as well, but they lived in Nigeria. So I remember when there was a particular day they had grandparents day at school, and my youngest was like, he was really, really upset because he didn't have a grandparent to take to school. And I was like, well, it was not like there's a 1-800 number dial, rent a grandparent. Like, I can't just go find a grandparent for you. So he had to share a grandparent. He was not happy and then he was the only Black child in the class. And so he had to share a white grandmother. And he was just really upset. And I was like, I'm sorry. I said, you know what, you do have grandparents. It's just they're not here, and we just can't go borrow any grandparent we see on the street. But so, and so I knew what it would and because I also had a very close relationship with my grandmother. So I had out of my maternal my maternal grandparents were the ones who were alive when I was born. My paternal were gone. And if you're a Yoruba woman, you will know once you hear my name, Yejide, you will know what happened. And so I'll explain when we talk about names. So Yejide means mother has come again. So I'm a Yoruba woman. That's the name of my tribe. And in our culture, we believe, like the idea of reincarnation, and that people come back. And so Yejide is usually given to a name, as a name rather, to a girl who was born after maybe her mother passed away or her grandmother passed away. And in my case, it was my paternal grandmother. I was born like 9 months after she passed. And so when I was born, and they say I look like her, we only have one picture, and really, I can't really see her face. So I'm not really sure if I look like her. But that's what all my family members always say. They call me mama, like I look like her. And that's one of the things I've always wondered, what it would have been like to meet her, right? To actually know who she was. And, so anytime I see all these stories with questions, will say, if there's one person living or alive you'd like to have a conversation with, is always my grandmother. Because I want to learn more about her. And, what was her life like? My dad never really talked about her because she died, she died at the point where he just finished school and he was now feeling like he could take good care of her, and then she passed. And so that was very hard for him. And so for me, and my maternal grandmother who was around, she absolutely loved me silly. She was kind of person that every Christmas, every birthday, she sent a chicken for my birthday. Because she didn't live near us, so she said I got a chicken on my birthday. And anytime she visited, I could be bad, right? So I know when she's around, I could do all the bad stuff I wanted to do because nobody would beat me while she's there. So they wouldn't spank me while she's there. Wait till she leaves, right? So I really had a very great relationship with my grandmother, and to the one who was living and the one whose legacy, in a way, I was kind of leaving, because every time I said my name, I remembered her. Like there was this woman whose life was tied to mine in a way. And so names are very important to me. And also important to me when I name even my characters, my story characters, because I feel like the names kind of shape their journey in my stories. And so naming is very important to me. So I spend a lot of time naming the characters, naming the story in itself. And so that leads to the title of the story, this tangible thing. Because it's when we're talking earlier, when I came in and you were talking about conversation about translating things. In Yoruba, we say munife, which, if you did a literal translation, almost like I have your love, right? And it's a very intangible thing, but it's also tangible in a way. And so because it's real, it takes up space. Love for me, like, when I feel secure in somebody's love, is like it's wrapped around me. It's like, and that's what I try to wrap the people who I love, like, and I like it's such a tangible thing. And that's why the story is called this tangible thing. Because in as much as love is abstract, it also feels like you can touch it. Like it holds space, So yeah, I tend to go on in different like different threads in my head. So I hope I've answered your question.
Yes.
Because okay.
I saw, because I noted here where you said the love we carry stays with us.
Yes.
Yeah. If there's anything I wish I could have had longer conversations with my grandparents, especially my grandfather, because I feel that he was a powerhouse of knowledge. But we didn't have that privilege, I think, because we were girls, to talk to him. So he would just, he would talk to you, but he would talk to you as a girl. So those secrets, yes, he would talk to you as a girl. So, when you talk to someone as a girl, there are things you would not say to that person. If I was a boy, he would have told me those things. So those things I have to find out from my father. But my grandfather is one person I wish I could have had longer conversation with. Yeah. So I'm going to come back to Nana and your poet trophy. I think in that poem you were celebrating Blackness, I think, and then touch on some of the themes of the book. So please talk to us about your poem trophy, and then we'll rope it into some of the themes of the book.
Yeah, thank you for that. First of all, oh my goodness, just hearing, being here and hearing you writers and Ray, just talking is just making me so happy because it's reminding me of how I felt when I was reading your work. And it's just so amazing. Anyway, with Trophy, it kind of, two things were sort of in my mind when I was writing it. One was several years ago, I was at a charity event for fundraising for, African children. And I remember whoever did the sort of media for the event photographed all of these African children, and the pictures were like, I mean, they were just stunning pictures in terms of like, it was like almost like a film. I mean, the way that the children were lit, the background, all of it. And I thought to myself, wow, it made me very emotional to see the images, because on one side, it was like, all of these people are gathered here for the African child. But then, of course, we know all of the things that are sort of wrapped into that, all of the, the ways that we sort of perpetuate this idea of like the poor African child, the all of the sort of stereotypes that are wrapped around it. So I felt very sort of emotionally conflicted by it, because on one hand, they were sort of celebrating them with these images. They weren't the typical images, but at the same time, we were still gathered there to sort of, in a way, it felt like fetishizing the African, child. And so it was sort of like they were being held up as a trophy of our goodness, that we're there to lift up these children, right? And then on the flip side, I was thinking a lot about just sort of, something that many Black women talk about in our circles is when like a Black man is successful or comes from some sort of success, he often goes for either a very fair-skinned woman or a white woman. Mm-hmm. And I have nothing against it. If that's what you like, that's what you like. Go for what your preference is. But I wanted to sort of bring it back to this idea that like, for us to look at ourselves and see our own value and our own worth, how might that change the way we interact with the world? Because people on the outside, just sort of kind of going back to this image, right? Like there's a reason that colonialism happened, right? They were not satisfied with what was where they were. So they came and they saw something good, right? And it's sort of like each time we've internalized such negativity because of, obviously it's sort of the campaigns around white supremacy, the lie of white supremacy. Those campaigns have sort of done so much damage to our own self-esteem. And I really just wanted to say, look, like you are the trophy. And so you don't need to go for a trophy wife if that's what you're doing. And we who have sort of internalized this negativity, we are trophies. We are valuable, and we don't need to get that validation outside of ourselves. So that's where that poem was coming from, and also I just reread it before I came on, because again, what I find so interesting is like there's so much talk about cultural appropriation, and I don't even want to go there because I do think that there's room for appreciation, and part of appreciation sometimes is adoption, right? But this idea that like, when you sort of, there's like sort of the Black trophy person who like, went and married someone or whatever it is. And then it's like the irony is that like their descendants will be so proud of that person. But did that person have the pride in themselves? So I wanted to sort of kind of deal with those kind of conflicting emotions that I was feeling at that event. And so that's where that poem came out of. And I think that just sort of bringing it home to all of the themes in the book, I think that there's so many conflicting feelings, right? Because it's like, you know, we talk about faith, Christianity, whatever your faith is, Islam, animism, whatever your faith is, it's like there's so many conflicting emotions, because I know I'm a Christian and I'm reading you know, all of these stories and we're having all these conversations, and I feel conflicted because on one hand, it's like, I do want to get married, I do want to have children, but I mean, that's a whole separate conversation in terms of, you know, where those ideas come from. But there is that feeling of conflictedness, right? Sitting in the inconvenient discomfort of all of the things that we're talking about today, right? And so this because for example, in Edwige's story, what I love is there is that sort of conflicting, right? Like at the end of the day, the heroine of the story, or the protagonist of the story, part of what she's dealing with is she does want a family, but you know, what she's being told and what she's living is in conflict, right? Or if we talk about Reem's story, again, there's this sense of conflict. It's like, this man is just a mild-mannered guy. He wants to just live his life, but his own sort of personal sort of backstory crashes against a young boy that he meets, and he comes to realize that he has to exit his own sense of comfort to be able to change things, right? Boachiwa's story, again, her essay was so powerful because it's, first of all, it's such a topic that we don't really talk about anywhere, right? The fact that as women, we don't really know our bodies. We're not really taught our bodies until it's too late, right? Or until it comes to the time when what's happening, you're not getting pregnant, or what's happening, this is. So I love that we have to sit in the inconvenience of a very learned woman, a very successful woman, also dealing with the fact that she doesn't know this one thing. And because of not knowing this one thing, it has all of these ripple effects. And I found it very surprising about the whole IVF embryo argument. I had never heard that before. And so I was just like, whoa, I never even thought about that. And I think that, again, what I think is so powerful about this anthology, and what I hoped to bring is, for, like I said in the intro, I want us to sort of have these sort of inconvenient, uncomfortable, difficult conversations, because I think even if we don't leave with a resolution, I don't think that's really necessarily the goal. I think that it expands our empathy for one another. It expands our understanding of each other. And I think that it leaves some sort of residue for change. It compels us to change. And I want to say one thing about translation. Because I think, first of all, Ray was an incredible partner. We would be on WhatsApp, like, we would set up WhatsApp conference calls with the writers, because, there were certain things that maybe I didn't understand. And I think what's so interesting to speak of the fact that we as Africans are not a monolith is that Ray is coming from Cameroon. Richard, whose story he translated, is coming from DRC. And then you have Salma, who's coming from Chad. So even though they're Francophone, they're French-speaking Africans, they also have different contexts as well. So we have to sort of remember that. So that was, I thought, such an interesting nuance in our conversations. And then I was thinking, when I would get the sort of translation back, I was thinking, okay, how do I not impose my own sort of American way of understanding certain things, and how the language might be? How do I not impose that and let it flow as the author intended, but at the same time make sure that it was understood by whoever was reading it? So I didn't tell Ray to, translate it for a US audience or a UK audience. I wasn't thinking of that. I just wanted it to be true to the story, but I knew that at the end of the day, I'm submitting it to, you know, editors in a US context. So I was mindful of those things on my end, but it was a very exciting experience for me to be able to sort of trust Ray, trust his translation, and then also let go. So it was, I mean, this has just been, and then I want to quickly say something about Yejide's story, because when I read it, I thought about myself, because I actually, when I was 12 years old, my parents sent me to school in Ghana, and I lived with my grandmother. And I treasure those years. I lived with her for 3 years, and we were just tight. We slept on the same bed, and I remember, so funny, one of the things she would say is, because I kicked too much when I was sleeping, she made a new announcement that she's gonna sleep head to the headboard, and I'm gonna sleep head to the foot of the bed. And that's how we slept for 3 years. And we were so tight, and we still are. She's actually going to be 90 years old, and I'm going for her celebration. But I thought about how those intergenerational relationships are so important, because and I will add that her mother ended up coming to live with us. So I got to live with my great-grandmother for some time before she passed on. And the power of being able to hear from them the stories of their childhood, and just sort of have that connection with those women is something that is so foundational to me. My great-grandmother could not speak English, and so she's the reason why the Ewe that I can speak, it came from her. So I thought that was such a powerful story, and so important, because of sort of migration, colonization, so many different things, we can get disconnected from where we come from. And those relationships with our grandparents, our great-grandparents, if we're so blessed, our elders, are so important to anchor us and make us remember, you know, who we are and where we come from, so that we do realize that we are trophies. So I will end there. I know I spoke a lot, but thank you again, Louisa, for having us and doing this.
Thank you so much, Nana. I'm actually amazed that we've been able to keep to time, and we are on track. You know, when you spoke about the way you speak based on your grandmother, even though my grandmom was tough. Anyway, being with a child like me, you had to be tough. You just had, yeah. But I remember her trying to, because I would always ask her to tell us stories, and she would start off the story in English, then she would go into Pidgin English, and then she would say, if you all could speak Esan, that's my tribe, my language, it would be easier for me to tell you these stories so that you understand, because there are certain things you can't translate. And I didn't, as you were talking now, my mind just went back to a story she was telling us, and about how the lizard was cutting down a tree. And all I remember as you were talking, she said, as the lizard was cutting down the tree, the sound it was making was poke egugu poke, poke egugu ragugu. You can't say that in English. You can't translate that. You can't translate that. So, and that has, you know, it has stayed with me. So now that you said it, I just thought, I'm like, that's true. But looking at the themes that you explored in this book, intergenerational relationships, colonization, colorism, love, even romance, because from Yejide's story where she was saying that you don't, I don't know, I wrote that down and said I'm going to read it again. Let me think. Where she said that in those days there was no falling, you meet, I think, and you just choose. Do you think that colonization has redefined a lot of things? And do you think that one way or the other, because I'm going to thinking of Edridge's story, we are now prisoners of our society? Because sociology asks that question a lot. Are we prisoners of our society? Can we truly be free of the expectations of our society? You know, can I truly just get up and say, you know what? I am not going to marry anybody. I choose to walk naked on the street because that is how I feel. That is my authentic self. Do you think we can truly be free of the expectations of our society? Because that man, and I'm still going to go back to him, that broke man that was cheating on her, you understand? Yeah. So do you think that we can truly be free? Do you think?
You know, I obviously we live in a society and we need to take, you know, other people into consideration. And I wouldn't want to be subjecting my nakedness on people out there just because I love looking very beautiful and stylish, and I do that through clothes. But I think like in some, you know, in some situations, we have to accept the fact that, you know, we are human beings. We cannot do everything, and we need to, you know, instead of saying like I have stopped saying something, and I think when I was in New York a few years ago, Nana, we had this conversation. Since I've had a library, since I set up the library some 3 years ago, one thing I am loving doing is actually taking the time to do siesta. It is my way of saying, you know what, Edwige, you are fantastic, you are great. And it is not a case of saying, oh, well, I am not, you know, I am doing well, but I'm not where I want to be yet. This is not a case of I don't want, you know, I am not where I want to be yet. I am here, and here is good. And I am doing my best, and my best is good. My best is great. And so I will sleep. And so I will say, I do not want to be in a relationship with this particular person, although as Edwige, obviously, relationships are good. We are in a relationship here. And it is good to have that closeness with somebody, to be able to be vulnerable with somebody, to be able to say that, yes, it is true that I have this personality that takes charge, but in my relationship, in my intimate relationship, I don't want to be that person to take charge. I want you to kind of, you know, bring me a bottle of wine every once in a while. I want you to take me out, and it is okay to demand that. And it is okay to look after ourselves. So in a sense that we cannot be totally free of the, you know, the regard, the gaze of the, you know, of other people. It is good that we need to love ourselves also. We are always saying, you know, I love you. It is always in relationship to an external people, you know, somebody to us. But we need to be able to say, I love myself, and I will give when my cup flows over. Until it overflows, I will not give anything, not even to my own child. I don't even let my own child pick into my plate because I hate sharing my food. So if you come with your little hand, I'll be like, what you want? What you want? Mama, I want to have your fries. I'll be like, no, go and get a plate. I don't like sharing my food. This is not me. And just because I have a child doesn't mean that I need to sacrifice myself. No, child, I will sleep. And when I'm doing well, then I will give you more. When I've bought my MAC Cosmetic lipstick, then I'll go and buy you some cookery class. I will not buy you the cookery class and then I'm going there having to put shea butter on my lips just because, oh, well, I have a child. No, my cup overflows and then I give to other people.
Okay, thank you so much, Edwige. So we are on, let me see, this is 12:12. We were going to start our let me see, our Q&A at 12:25. So this means that we have a longer time to ask questions and get answers. So please, everybody, who wants to go next, please?
I want to quickly say something about that, because I think something that we don't give enough, I don't know, respect to is the fact that it's so natural that there is this, whenever we have contact with anything or anyone, it leaves a residue. We leave a residue, they leave a residue on us. And so that is the human experience of life. And I don't think that we need to feel like, I think as Africans, we can tend to feel ashamed, like, oh my gosh, colonialism happened and this is, but they too have taken things from us. It's a part of the exchange of human life. That being said, I think that we are always constantly, we are organisms, and so we're organically growing. We're everything, there's always flux, if you will. And so can we be free of what's happening around us? Yes, you can, in the sense that, you know, there comes a time where we reach a saturation point, and then people say, listen, I'm tired of this. there's that you rise up, and that's what revolution is, right? And that can be bloody, it can be bloodless, right? But there's always, every society is constantly going through, oh my God, I'm sick and tired of this thing happening. And then they get their druthers together, or we get our druthers together, and we say no more, right? But I think that that's the beauty of life, right? And also the pain of life, that we have to constantly examine what's going on around us and within us and say, look, is this something that's right for me? And if it's not, what am I willing to do? Am I willing to leave the comfort of my community or disappoint people? Am I willing to break out of my own comfort zone? Those are the questions that we have to deal with. Many times we say no. I mean, we talk about these movements. The civil rights movement was, many people were like, don't say anything. But the few people that rose up are the reasons why we enjoy the benefits that we do today. So I think that it's just, I think again, it's a sense where we have to know what our own line is. And if that's crossed, what are we willing to do to sort of protect that?
Okay, thank you so much. Alice, I see your hand up. For people just joining, we've opened the floor for questions and answers. So Alice, after you, then Boachewa will speak.
Well, first and foremost, I just wanted to say that this book has been an eye-opening, but also a conversation starter for me, because there was a lot, each and every story in there I have related to it. I have related to the story from where when they talk about how fathers are allowed legally to leave a country with a child, leaving the mother who cares for that child for several years, for several months, who has cared for that child for several years, without even considering their emotional part, because separating a mother to her child, it's basically killing that person. I don't know how I would do if one day somebody will come and pick up my daughter and leave. Okay, no, somebody's gonna die and I'm going to jail. But that's a different conversation. However, that really touched me in the sense of we hear a lot about Sudan, and a lot of times we hear about what is happening there, but we rarely hear about the real life, what is happening within the country. We only see the picture of the war. So having a story such as this one, bringing it into a community, that really touched me, because I realized that though I think I am informed, I'm also, I lack a lot of information and I should look into it. I was touched by the grandmother and the grandmother relationship with her grandchild, because I am currently living and witnessing the beauty of having a grandmother. I grew up with my grandmother, but we were just visiting because we were living abroad and we were just visiting for summer. But I look at my daughter and my mother, oh my God, the love that those two have for one another. Sometimes I sit down and I am jealous of that relationship, because I didn't have that relationship with my mom. There was years where I was like, I don't like you, because I found it that it was, but at the same time, I'm also very, I feel like I'm blessed because my mother gets to teach my daughter our native language, gets to teach her how women should be treated, how strong she should always feel. And she has that way of talking and encouraging her that I feel that sometimes as a mother, I lack. So seeing that relationship and seeing how and grateful and beautiful that relationship is, I'm thankful to the Lord, because I'm like, this has been an eye-opening for me. And it also helps me to improve as a mother. In addition of that, I also was touched a lot by the story that Ray has translated. First and foremost, thank you very much, Ray, because translation, a lot of people don't always really recognize the importance of it. It gives us access to another word. If you haven't translated that story, a lot of people will have never talked about what is happening in Congo. I happen to have worked there. And it was a story that I related to because I have been around those things, but I found that unfortunately we don't talk enough about those subjects. And being on the northern continent, I mean, in America, in Canada specifically, we don't hear a lot about what is happening in Congo. So being able to have those stories has also helped me into getting back and figuring out how I can help, though I'm a little bit far, but also put a little bit of light in what is happening there. All of that to say that this book was a great book. I bought it for my three brothers and I told them, sit down, read. Because I found that as a woman, my perspective reading the book was an interesting one because I was like, I could see myself in so many characters. But at the same time, I felt that there was a lot of lesson that men can take away from it. I want my brothers to treat their wives and girlfriends right. So the story of the cheater for me was like, this is what you're not gonna do because your sister here needs you to be right, to treat, and I want you to also raise your children, your boys, to treat women right. And these are the stories that I don't want to hear in our family. I don't want that in our lineage. So I want to thank you all because this book has been a great read. Each and every story, I found myself getting excited and being sad and then getting excited again. So thank you very much for sharing those stories. And Nana, thank you very much for putting them together because it's worth being read. And I had two questions. One to Reem, and I wanted to ask you, why was it so important for you to actually talk about the relationship that fathers and children have? Because I found that in the story, it was something that was really heavily talked about, but yet, anyway, why did you feel that it was important? And my second question was for Edwidge. Looking at what this man was doing and how he treated it, how I found he was like, there was a little bit of what should as a woman do to forgive. But why did you not maybe look into how he should have changed in reverse, on the reverse side, basically? I don't know if my last question was clear.
Okay, let me see. Edwidge is frozen. Okay, Reem, go ahead and answer. Then, okay, so after Reem, then when Reem answers, Edwidge will answer, then Boachewa will speak. Okay.
Thank you. And thank you for your kind words. That was very encouraging. This is a great book. I'm not talking about my contribution, but all the other contributions as well. And it's really like Nana and everyone was saying is that, you know, Africa is not a monolith. We have so much in common, but there's also so much diversity, especially in a country like Sudan, where you have all these different origins, different religions, different languages, different dialects, different customs, different cultures. And they clash, but they also complement. The whole question of identity is something that is on everyone's mind and everyone deals with it so differently. Some people, for example, I see that my shared different tribal regions are all complement each other and they make me who I am, whereas other people can't really deal with that diversity. And that's a huge part of all the trouble that we've had over the past few decades. And it's also something that I think that other Africans can relate to. So concerning your question about why it was important to highlight that relationship, and this is something that kind of, it comes up in almost all my writing for some reason. And it's something that I had to think about as well, because pretty much everything that I write has to have a reference to, you know, the family context or the parent or the culture. And I think because I deal a lot with the theme of change and overcoming fear, especially in this story where the main issue was just overcoming people fighting their personal battles and overcoming that fear. In Sudan, like many other countries, the culture or the society is sort of like this huge thing that hangs over everything, and people are constantly emotionally blackmailed into submission. Whenever you stand up and you say, this is wrong, this is, enough, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not, submitting to these outdated cultures or these outdated beliefs that we have. Immediately your ancestors and your parents and your family stand up and they're like, oh, how dare you? It's always that, how dare you dress, differently? How dare you? And especially for women, when we talk about our rights, it's kind of like a bad word when you say my rights to an education, my right to say what I want, my right to justify, and my right to hold on to my kids. This reference to the child, there was even a part of the section in the story which I asked Nana to keep out, because that was part of some research that we're doing, some interviews that I was doing about the whole personal law that we're trying to change in Sudan, where because of this whole patriarchal society where men are, children belong to with their fathers, regardless of the fact that the mom is the one who carried and gave birth and who actually understands what a child wants and what a child needs, and regardless of the fact of what it does to her when you take that child away, compared to a father. Of course, this is not generalizing, but this is just the general idea. But just that whole part about the shadow that overhangs everything, and kind of suffocates people and insists on keeping them in place, based on all these outdated and very unjust ideas, because that's the way things were done decades ago, and that people believe that they should still be done this way. And this is a lot. It's this problem isn't just a cultural problem. It's not just about people trying to change. It also affects the politics. It affects the economy. The problems that we have in Africa and in the Middle East, all the fighting, all the injustice, all the thievery and the robbery, it's because we have these older generations who want things. They want the status quo. They have to have that because it supports their very existence. When they hear talk about change and how these ideas of democracy and these ideas of equality and these ideas of people reaching their full potential, it threatens their existence, because for so long they've been their superiority has relied on this, and the culture and the customs and the traditions feed so much into this and actually prop it up. So any kind of refusal of these traditions and these customs and the parent is a direct threat to them and must be taken out at any cost. It's also kind of a cause of conflict for me because I have great parents, but I was lucky enough to grow up in an educated family, and a family where all the different tribes that I come from, at the very least, tolerate a woman, at the most completely support her. My parents are educated, my grandparents are educated, so it's just my luck. I was born into that. The vast majority of women where I come from don't have that, and this is everywhere. It's not just it's here. So it's also kind of a bit of trouble for me to put the parent in that negative light, and I always have to think very hard about that. In my latest novel that I'm working on, initially I had the father kind of almost the same as Ustaz Awad's father, and that really bothered me. It was mainly because in that part of the country, my hometown in the northern part of the country, these villages, that's how they were. The father or the grandfather or the male of the family is always, has the final say, or actually has the only say, regardless of whatever. But it was very important for me in this last novel to kind of try and break that. And I remember having this discussion with my husband. I'm like, I can't keep having evil fathers in my story just because there are a lot of them that way. It was so I had to literally change the entire course of the story just to fit that in. And I'm happy that I finally managed to put a supportive, albeit flawed person in there, just because from my experience and from the experience of a lot of people, there are those people in our society. So it's just the idea of change and fighting for what you believe in and fighting against what other people are trying to confine you to. For me, it just kind of that's the way it looks. When you have the father or the patriarchy or the ancestors or the traditions, and you're trying to change that. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Please, can we keep our questions short so every other person can have the opportunity to also ask questions? So, Edwidge,
I think at least your question was why it didn't change or something like that. The guy, because why should anybody give her the privileges?
The question was more in regards of why do we feel as women, as African women, that we are the ones who should be looking into the solution instead of having the male who are responsible of those situations looking to changing and finding solutions in regards of an issue that they created.
Yeah, I think again, maybe tradition, maybe in the case of this of this story, she is from from this Christian background that and I'm very much against that because personally I am a Christian. Like I have chosen to kind of walk that path of Christianity, but it doesn't mean that I do not acknowledge my ancestors. I acknowledge them very well. I am very much of the belief that if God has something against what I am saying or doing, is very capable to let me know that at least this is wrong. And I do not need the congregation or the assembly of other people to tell me. So I think maybe because of the way some of us have been going back to Africa, not being a monolith, some of us have been raised, so that's why she was looking for, for the solution and questioning also. And she looked for the solution, with women. I do believe that the community of women is very, very important, whether there are women who agree with us or whether there are women who do not agree with us, it is very important to have that community of women. So she was looking for the solution there. I think it tried to change later on when she actually said she's going to divorce. So then suddenly was delegating like, everybody. So I think you need to come to a point where your privileges are threatened to, to want to change. If privileges were not threatened, why should it change? She was sitting there nicely. So yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you, Edwidge. I'm just going through the comment section and I see something here written by Yeji Day where she said that listening to your question, Louisa, this phrase came to my mind. Tradition is just peer pressure from dead people. I'm not sharing because I believe I am not sharing because I believe in that 100%, but always think about importance of considering what we accept as tradition. I believe there is a place for creating new ones. Yeah, which is very true. So, Boachewa, please go ahead.
Hi, Louisa, and I will keep it quite short. I just had a reaction to a question you asked earlier. It's just I'm now getting to comment on it, which is the question about society and can we get rid of society? I do want to quickly make a comment on that. I think sometimes there's a little bit too much judgment, too much of camps, like liberal versus conservative. That's what makes us question whether society is something we can remove or how we want to deal with it. But I go back to the comment that you just read, literally I'd written in here. We've been talking about that Africa is not a monolith, society isn't a monolith, and individuals are not monoliths. And we shouldn't sort of view society necessarily as a bad thing. What someone may view as bad within the society, I might enjoy. What someone might view as crippling or handicapping in society, I might really find it to be good structure for me. So for instance, I regard myself as strong, independent, talented, and all of that and whole, but I also still crave and seek to be married and in a long-term relationship and have a partnership and submit to my partner submit to my partner's leadership in a healthy, safe, and respectful way. But somehow we sort of think that if a woman is independent and strong, then if she wants marriage, maybe it's societal pressure. But I don't quite regard it as societal pressure. I regard it as something I personally want and I've thought about, and the two should not be viewed as something that is in conflict. Or if a woman wants marriage and kids, it doesn't mean that it's influence from church or religion or society. It could be a really personal thing. And like Edwige just said, I believe in God, but I also believe in ghosts and spirits and vampires and all of that. So we are diverse people. So I think that should be something that we shouldn't react to people's how they are and say that maybe there's influence here or they're not able to be themselves or be their own people because it's pressure. Sometimes it is pressure, but sometimes it's something that they also want. And the second quick comment I just wanted to make about fertility is, I mean, one of the motivations was to educate. But the second thing, since we're all here, is to enable people, give support. So I just wanted to quickly say that it's most likely you will know someone going through a fertility challenge. And as females, I think Louisa, you said, and someone posted it on there as well, as why don't women support women? So I just wanted to quickly say that as much as it's something that you might think is too sensitive to bring up, you have no idea how that person might want to share or want to hear or want that support. So it's to encourage those of us on here that you can broach the subject. Like, I feel like I didn't get that support. People don't have that conversation with me. They know how old I am. They know I've been trying. They know this, they know that, but there's too much around. You don't want to say anything, but I'm encouraged that I wish people would approach me and talk about it and want to engage with me and offer support and offer ideas. So that's the quick thing I wanted to say, especially since we have this forum, that don't hesitate and try and be there for someone, you know.
Oh, thank you very much for saying that. I'm just looking through the comment. It was Bukola who asked, you know, why is it the women that are negative towards other women? Well, from what you said, you see, I feel that, for me personally, I just feel that it's a very, very sensitive subject. So I would, if I know that, oh, a friend is going through this, especially when it has to do with issues of fertility, I would rather you initiate and then we take it from there. But I have to be super, super close to you to ask. But even when I ask with caution, because I'm always going, I don't know, does she want to talk about it, since I'm not a doctor? You know, what am I going to say? Yeah, but thank you for saying that, you know, sometimes it's okay to bring it up and talk to people. So the floor is open for questions, please. Do I see any? Bukola, do you have any questions? Hemilyn, I see people's hands. Okay, so I will just go through the comment section here and just read questions. Ria, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good for now.
Okay, so I'm just looking through. Oh, and Alice says, Auntie Georgette made me think of you, Louisa. Really? You know, so, you know, in talking about the society and the way women are perceived, you know, my question still comes down to how much is too much? You know, it's like I keep going back to Edwidge's story and how when things happen, people comfortably blame the devil. Can we get to a point in the society where we stop blaming the devil? Yeah, for our actions. Yeah. Can we get to that point in the society where we just leave the devil alone to do whatever? I don't know if the devil is a he or she or it, but can we ever get to that point in the society where we just leave the devil alone to do whatever he or she does best, you know, and own our take responsibility for our actions? Yeah, because I keep thinking of that. And, you know, it's like when I talk to some of my male friends and I say to them that, yeah, when I talk to people, if I'm introduced to somebody and we are talking, one thing I always make very clear is I don't tolerate nonsense. Yeah. I said, oh yeah, I say it. And someone said to me, no, you don't say that to a man. I said, but that is me. I'm just being honest. Yeah. I'm not saying it in an aggressive way, but in the course of our conversation, I say it. Yeah, I don't tolerate nonsense. So that you know not to bring your BS here. You know, to take your BS somewhere else. If you're not going to be serious, if you're not serious about this conversation, leave me alone. Don't come here, waste my time, waste my saliva talking to you when you know this isn't going anywhere. And yeah, so it still comes back to this question of society. How much is too much? Buchewa said something about, yes, wanting to be married, wanting to have that family. I look at it, when I think of marriage, I look at it from a place of love. I look at it from a place of companionship. I look at it from a place of mutual respect. But what I realize is that when people are being given advice about marriage, especially in our African societies, the focus and the emphasis seems to be on women. Oh, submit to your husband, you talk too much, don't say this. But I keep wondering, I would actually like to sit in a men's counseling session to hear if their counselor ever says to them, you people go to the Bible all the time and talk about submission, but the Bible also says, love your wives like Christ loved the church. There's no place in the Bible where it says, women, love your husbands. No. People don't know that. There is no place in the Bible that says that. But it emphasizes, men, love your wives like Christ loved the church. So I would like to actually be the fly on the wall, in a men's counseling session to hear if they are actually advised, love your wife. Yeah. Respect is earned. This submission and this honor, trust me, if you love your wife and you show her good love and kindness, she will submit to you automatically. You don't need to, it's not rocket science. But when you come there and you try to force it, you try to, especially these ones that say, oh, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man. Rich men don't make noise. Nah, they don't make noise. The comfort speaks for itself. You find yourself doing what you feel you should do. But these broke ones, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man. Okay. Camille, I see your hand up.
Hi. I just have a quick question for I'm gonna say Miss Glover because I'm afraid to say the wrong thing for her name because it's a beautiful name. It's something about, it's an update question because you shared such a personal essay. And if you choose to tell us, if you choose not to, that's fine as well. But you also spoke of your foster son, and I loved that part of the story, and I just wanted to know how that was going.
Thank you, Camille. And yes, I'm on the path of openness, so I don't mind sharing. So I'll give two updates. One on the foster son. I'm in court. I've been in court since 2020. I'm trying to get custody. It's been 3 years, so I don't have full custody yet. So I'm still fostering. But he's with me. He's doing great. I've been caring for him for 5 years, so it's quite painful. That and he sent me a beautiful. Sorry, Camille. I mean, Louise. I'll be very, very quick about this. But it was my birthday, and he wrote this card that I'm carrying along, and he says, "I love you for what you have done for me. I wish you a great birthday and hope you good luck. You are a very good mother to me." And to have this, and I don't have full custody. I don't have the legal right to him is so painful. But I'm still fighting. I'm still in the game and hoping that this can be resolved soon. And then on the fertility end, so where the story ended, it's progressed beyond that to a situation where it's even far worse than it was. So I'm at the point where I'm not quite sure what my options are because I had to have surgery last year, which was very, very complicated because I found more stuff. And short of a full removing everything in there, they did remove some stuff from my reproductive that is going to make it extremely challenging. It's not impossible, but it's extremely challenging because I've now lost both fallopian tubes. So I cannot naturally get pregnant. It will have to be an implantation. So the possibility of natural pregnancy is like out the window. So it has to be IVF. And even with that, my uterine lining wall is, with age, it gets thinner and thinner. So the difficulty in implanting a baby is a bit of an issue. So still dealing with that, but I think at a point I'll probably make a decision as to whether or not I'm going to continue on this journey or I'm going to call it a day. So I'm still working through that decision and haven't come to the conclusion yet.
Miss, you are on the journey. You've got 2 boys. You are on the journey.
Oh, Lala, that's you. I was wondering who that was.
Yeah, that's me. I had my hand up for a minute.
Thank you for sharing.
You are on it. You are on it. I have been a single mother for 16 years, and I can count how many times I've gotten the paper you've just posted. You just shared. I can I can tell you what I had to do to get that. So you are on the part.
Thank you so much. Yechide, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to that beautiful, thank you for sharing first that your birthday card. And I think because my current job, one of my current jobs is I supervise a team where we do all the foster parents. We support all the foster parents. We do foster parent recruitment. And one of the things that I hear a lot from our foster parents is when we're going through the process of permanency, it is such a long, extended, very frustrating. You know, especially when we play, so sometimes children are placed in the homes when they're babies. And 2-3 years, permanency hasn't still been decided. And it's very hard. It's very, I wanted to acknowledge that because I see it. It's very, very hard. And so, but it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing when, and I always say families are made in different ways, right? So we don't have a particular way we make a family. Families come in different ways, and yeah, you're so blessed to have each other. And I just wanted to say that because yeah, I know I can imagine your frustration because I hear it when we have like our town hall. The foster parents are like, when is this legal thing going to be done? And unfortunately, because we don't have any, it's a court system, right? We don't have any influence on that. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Ejide, and thank you, Boachewa. Listening to this conversation, what the question that came to mind is, what defines a mother and what defines a father? Is it the person, is it the sperm donor, is it the egg donor, or is it the person who nurtures, loves that child? Yeah, so then it now takes me back. Is our definition of us women in our 40s wanting to birth our own children? Is it the Africanness in us that feels that it's like when you have women, I have a lot of women saying, oh, because I think for those in the medical field from the age of 35, I think those are those called geriatric pregnancies, but they are high risk pregnancies, right? And so most of the time when you get pregnant from 35 and above, automatically they say a cesarean. But someone said to me, oh, she gave birth through a cesarean and shouldn't tell anybody her secret. And I said, but what's the big secret there? Some people opt for cesareans. Oh, you know, it is more honorable when you birth the child, when you push the child. It's like a rite of passage. So and then, you know, when I listen to women who have actually pushed, I mean, I saw my sister give birth. And I said, if I didn't do this in my 20s, there's no way I'm going to push. Hell no. When I saw it, I was traumatized. And I went, is this what it is? Because I've always assumed, you know, you just lie there, push, and the baby just comes out. But when I saw the process, you know, I went, I think it's still this African thing where we feel that pain is a rite of passage, which shouldn't be. Yeah, it's okay to desire, you know, to want to carry yours. But, you know, when I got to that part of the eggs, because I had a friend who got married at 40. And, you know, we take a lot of things for granted. I mean, she's a medical doctor. In fact, she was a virgin when she got married. So we're happy for her that, oh, wow, one touch, you get pregnant. And then she started the fertility journey. And it's been, 3 years? And the day we spoke, and she said to me, I'm getting emotional now. She said to me that when she went to the doctor, so this is a medical doctor. She's a medical doctor. And she went to see a fertility doctor, and the fertility doctor, because she started IVF and it didn't, I think when it was stimulated, I think she said they couldn't pull enough eggs. She didn't produce enough eggs. And the doctor said to her, you can use donor eggs. A lot of women use donor eggs, though they don't say it. You know, I started crying when she said so. I started to cry. And she went, Louisa, why are you crying? I said, I don't understand. Why? So why are they suggesting donor eggs? So, you know, it's just this thing like, and I think that it's very, very important that we take our health seriously. There are a lot of things we take for granted. Yeah, we take a lot of things for granted. Yeah. Yeah, Lydie, I see your hand up. Lydie, after you, then Alice, you speak.
So, you know, with the donor eggs, there's nothing wrong with donor eggs, you know, because if from my experience and from my knowledge, we are born with the most eggs. And as soon as we're born, everything, the rate start decreasing right away, right? So, and that's what we need we need to embrace. Donor eggs, donor sperm, surrogacy, adoption, fostering. These are all valuable options, Like, I know you know my friend, one of my friends, he's in a same-sex marriage, and I had promised to donate my eggs to him and his partner. But years after, they came back to me and said, we've changed our mind. And I asked them why. Is it because my eggs are now old? They said no, but they decided it's going to cost a lot of money to retrieve the eggs and then fertilize, just to go through the whole process that may or may not work. And there are already so many children in the world that needs a home. And they consider it actually selfish for them to think that if they don't biologically have a child, then they're not parents. You see? And that's where this was 3-4 years ago. And now they've gone on to adopt a couple of babies. So I just think we all need to change our mindsets and just naturally be more open. And somebody was talking earlier about, I think, ancestors and all that. And it's just all of the things that we know we need to unlearn. And it's all, like, I didn't make this up. Somebody's child said it. And I remember saying to them, your child is a genius. The child said, culture is peer pressure from dead people. so a lot of the sorry, I don't know.
She wrote that in the comment section here.
Who did? Somebody did, eh?
Yes, H.D. Kilanko wrote it here. Yeah, she wrote it here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I read that. I saw it somewhere, and I said to I responded, your child is it, and it is what it is. So we tell our children, don't follow this, don't follow that. But where we are following things that worked for them 1,000 years ago, most of which were formulated by a bunch of men to suppress us females. Not every vagina, excuse my, for my explicitity, not every vagina is going to have a child. Not every, and a C-section is actually more painful than a vaginal birth. I don't know where people got that notion that a C-section is the easier way. It's not. Because a vaginal birth, if you're lucky, you push and you move on. A C-section, people live with with the pain, whatever, for weeks ahead. So, and the last thing I wanted to comment on was Lisa was talking about submission. So I went on a very short date with a Nigerian guy recently, and he told me that, oh, you can be in control of you can actually be in control of your relationship without letting them know that you're in control. So I'm like, okay, so how? Well, men have ego. So you need to know how to, this is the person I'm meeting for the first time. So I'm like, everybody has an ego. My son has an ego. He's 15. Children have egos, right? So, and then he brought up the topic of submission. And I said, what is submission really? I just wanted to know. This person couldn't find me an explanation. So all of us as parents, everybody, we just need, somebody said it earlier, we just need to do a little bit better. You're not going to get something just because you have a penis. You're not going to get my respect because you have a penis. So, thank you very much, ladies, for sharing your knowledge. Thank you. And thank you, Luisa.
Thank you so much, Lala. We have 7 more minutes. Oh, we have time. Alice, short questions, please.
It was not actually a question, and it will be short. I just wanted to come back in regards of the foster system or the adoption system. I do agree that it's a long process, and Once again, I feel like sometimes the legality of it, or it has a patriarchal tendency, because I have wanted to adopt for the longest that I knew. As soon as I was making enough money and I told myself, okay, I can actually provide for a child, I always have wanted to adopt. But there are so many barriers that kind of limit you. And I always told myself I will adopt an older child, because I know babies, they're easily adoptable. People usually want babies because it's easier. They feel that they're going to be able to educate them and help them grow. But all those kids, what they need is just a house and someone to love. So that goes to the question that you asked earlier, Ariza. What makes a parent? A parent is someone who cares and loves you unconditionally. It doesn't take for you to be blood related. I know that I have a lot of my friends who are going through the process, the IVF process. And many of us as women, maybe this generation, at least my generation, I think we have been told for so many years, you have to study, you have to have that degree, so you won't be depending of anybody. The day you get that degree, your mothers, your aunties will fall on your head. As if nowadays Amazon delivers men. Oh, where is the husband? You told me to concentrate on one thing. I did. Give me the time to concentrate on the second one. And honestly, for having lived that example, my mother told me, if a man breathes in your way, you turn around and run. I want you to focus on your studies. The day I got that diploma, and I'm not lying, as soon as that degree was in my hand, my mama was like, where are my grandchildren? I said, excuse me, ma'am. Aren't you the same woman who told me that if a man breathes in my direction, I should run? Wait a second. What? And this is the type of messages that unfortunately we have been passing on. The other day, I caught one of my cousins having that same narrative with one of my nieces. And I say, wait a second, I'm not encouraging kids to be sexually active before it was time. But when you tell your child that they have to focus on one thing, and then you come back and start asking for babies, that destroys the self-confidence. It's a mixed message. We need to figure out a way to have both ways. As everybody here said, relationships are beautiful things and we all want it. Now, we have to find a way to not only empower our girls, but not give them mixed messages. I swear to God, up until now, my mother is still like, by the way, what is my second grandchild? I say, one was not enough. Eh? Now you want two. Hold on a second. But I laugh about it nowadays, but I remember when I was 24, and then I'm not joking when I say, as soon as they put it, just the time for us to throw the things and get back to our family. My mama, the first thing she told me was not congratulations. No, she was like, where are my grandbabies now? I said, am I supposed to have? I'm not married. It's not going to happen that day. But all of that to say that I agree that the foster system is extremely long. I wish right now I'm in the process of fostering, because I thought, okay, adopting it's taking a whole while. Maybe if I foster, and I think that sometimes there is also the fear, because I live on the Quebec side, and when I did my application to be a foster house, a lot of the social workers that I met here were asking me, "Are you sure?" And that is already discouraging. If it wasn't for the fact that I knew that what I wanted, but imagine when you are trying to offer and people tell you, "Are you sure?" And I asked them, why do you ask me if I'm sure? If I came and I went through the process, it's because I know what I'm doing. Well, a lot of African women don't usually adopt or foster. What do you mean? The child is going to eat the food. He's going to have food. He's going to have a roof over his head. The child is going to be taken care of. What does that has to do with my origins? It has nothing to do with it. I'm going to be a parent as anybody else. And it's being a biological parent doesn't mean that you're going to be a good parent. Because I've seen them. I've seen families that are destroyed. So I'm also going to call her Glover because I don't want the ancestors.
We have 2 more minutes.
But anyway, all of that to say that, yes, I think that there is a lot of changes that needs to be done in regards of facilitating families and parents or whoever wants to be a parent to foster, and the system has to change.
Okay, thank you, Alice. I'm actually amazed that we were able to stick to the 2 hours we set out to do. I mean, thank you. I just want to say a very big thank you. We've never had this before. 6 authors joining in from 5 countries. Once again, this is the Ottawa Black Book Club, run, and you see, I'm very, you can feel my excitement. When I started this book club, I didn't know where we were going to go, but look at us today. And we have the amazing Alice here. We have the amazing Ria. These are 2 ladies who make sure, I mean, I can't do this, or I couldn't have done this on my own. Nana, you are amazing. I told Nana that she's the first author that, look, the back and forth, amazing. So Nana, now you understand what I go through when I put out all these things people see. It's a lot of work. Yeah. So the back and forth, at least, it gave you an idea of the work that goes into, everything we see for 2 hours on a Saturday. It's a lot of work. Wachewa, I just want to say thank you for sharing such a personal story. I wish you all the best on your journey. Thank you for being an inspiration to a lot of people. Edwidge, thank you for your story. And for sharing similar views to me about all these broke people. Yejide, my sis, I just want to say thank you so much for this intergenerational story. I didn't grow up close to my grandmother, but reading your story gave me a lot of forgiveness, because I know that having a stubborn child is not easy. Having someone who is stubborn and who is naughty. But now I'm beginning to question a lot of things. What could I have learned if I had the opportunity? I would have actually loved to sit and talk for longer periods with my grandparents. Reem, thank you so much for opening my eyes, to Sudan. Sudan in my head is a country that, we just know it's in North Africa, but we don't know what goes on there. I think my only research I've done on Sudan was when I was researching into the Christmas cultures of different parts of Africa. So thank you for that. Ray, thank you for at least giving us an insight into translation. Growing up in Nigeria, we had this interesting program called Ichoku that had to do with a translator, the guy who would translate for the white man. And translate for the white man. And when people go to court and the white man would tell him what to say to them, or tell him what he has done is wrong, he would say to them, he said, you should bring 1 goat and 2 chickens to my house. So thank you for giving us insights on that. Let me see, which other writer haven't I addressed? And then finally, Nana. Thank you so much. I connected, so I've always followed Nana, which is interesting, from the days of Powder Necklace. And then I saw her book Blue, and I just started following her. And then when I started my podcast for children's books, I reached out to her and asked, do you want to feature on my podcast? Let's talk. And it doesn't happen often, but somehow we just connected. And yeah, it stayed that way. So thank you, amazing authors. Please, when you have all your writing stuff, rope me in. Just send me messages. I would like to stay in touch with all of you, because I just realized that I do a lot on the book club here, but I don't actually connect. Like all these writers' events, I don't see myself there. I only hear after it's done. So yeah. So I just want to say a very big thank you to everybody. If anybody has any last words they would like to say, please. Alice, do you have anything you want to say in French?
And it doesn't have to be in French, but I just want to thank the members also who joined us today. Don't forget, please go review the book. Make sure that you put a note to our fantastic authors. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. It was a blessing and an honor to meet all of you, even though it's virtually. Maybe in the future we will be able to meet in person. And thank you for your smiles and your wonderful and inspirational words.
Thank you so much. Ria, do you have anything to say?
No, Alice actually said it. Please leave a review. Just let's help the authors out and give them some exposure, especially when it comes to creatives that are in the Black space. So let's do that.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And once again, like I said, I'm going to publicize this because it's not every day we get 6 authors, joining in. So I am going to milk it. So once again, this is the Ottawa Black Book Club. We meet on the last Saturdays of every month from January to November. And our books are focused on books by authors of African and Black descent, because we believe that we are the only ones who have the power to shape our narratives, one book at a time. I mean, we welcome people from all ethnicities who are interested in learning about the Black experience. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day. Bye.